When you think of Alabama, you picture college football and Southern charm. But behind the iron gates of Birmingham and the vast timberlands of the South lies a ruthless, multi-billion-dollar oligarchy. We are talking about highly fortified dynasties that control global water infrastructure, international coal reserves, and the absolute monopoly on academic data. Today, we count down the 12 richest families in Alabama. Number 12, the Propst Family, the pharmaceutical landlords. How the money was made. In the world of wealth, true fortunes are rarely made by inventing the cure. They are made by controlling the distribution of the medicine. William Bill Propst Sr. began his career as a standard pharmacist, but his ambition was limitless. He secured a contract to build and manage the entire pharmacy network for Kmart, operating over 2,000 pharmacies nationwide. But he didn't stop at retail. He pivoted into manufacturing, founding Qualitist Pharmaceuticals in Huntsville, Alabama. He realized that the rapidly aging American population would require an endless, highly lucrative supply of generic prescription drugs. How it was protected. Manufacturing pharmaceuticals is highly regulated and incredibly capital-intensive. The Propst family protected their staggering wealth by executing the ultimate, perfectly timed exit strategy. In 2010, they sold Qualitist to Endo Pharmaceuticals for a jaw-dropping $1.2 billion. They took a high-risk, regulatory-heavy manufacturing operation and instantly converted it into an untouchable mountain of liquid cash. The power move. The Propst family did not simply place their billions in a savings account. They executed a massive geographical power move. They poured their liquid capital directly into the physical dirt of Huntsville, Alabama. They developed sprawling commercial real estate, high-end residential complexes, and the massive mid-city district. What most people misunderstand, the general public assumes that the wealth in Huntsville, the famous Rocket City, is controlled exclusively by aerospace engineers and defense contractors. The Propst family proved that the real, dynastic money is found in generic painkillers and the physical land beneath the rocket scientists. They extracted $1 billion from the healthcare sector and used it to become the undisputed landlords of Alabama's fastest-growing metropolis. Number 11. The Smith family, the toll booth of the internet. How the money was made. Mark C. Smith did not write flashy consumer software or build social media apps. He built the heavy, expensive physical infrastructure that actually makes the internet function. Co-founding Adtran in Huntsville in the 1980s, Smith capitalized on the breakup of the AT&T monopoly. He recognized that regional telecommunications carriers were desperate for the specialized hardware required to route high-speed digital networks. Adtran stepped in to provide the incredibly complex fiber optic access and backhaul equipment that modern carriers rely on. How it was protected. The Smith family protected their wealth by burrowing deep into the enterprise and carrier markets. Consumer electronics are trendy and volatile, but carrier-grade telecommunications hardware requires massive, multi-year contracts and absolute reliability. Once a major telecom provider installs AD-TRAN hardware into their cellular towers and routing hubs, the switching costs are astronomically high. This creates an unshakable, sticky revenue stream that consistently generates hundreds of millions of dollars. The power move. Mark Smith utilized his massive telecom fortune to actively shape the intellectual and civic skyline of Huntsville. He invested heavily in the community, funding vast expansions in the local technology ecosystem, ensuring that Adtran always had first access to the elite engineering talent, funneling out of the local universities and defense programs. What most people misunderstand, people think tech billionaires are only minted in Silicon Valley. But software is completely useless without the physical, subterranean infrastructure required to move the data. The Smith family proved that the ultimate technological wealth is not found in building the digital car. It is found in paving the digital highway. They own the invisible toll booth of the internet in the South. Number 10. The Bruno family, the grocery gladiators. How the money was made. During the brutal depths of the Great Depression in 1932, Joe Bruno took the savings of his Italian immigrant family and opened a tiny 800-square-foot corner grocery store in Birmingham, Alabama. He and his brothers worked relentlessly, eventually transforming that single, humble storefront into Bruno's supermarkets. They built an absolute retail leviathan that dominated the southern grocery market for decades, expanding into hundreds of stores under various brand names. How it was protected. The Bruno family protected their staggering regional monopoly by aggressively taking the company public in the 1970s, infusing the business with the massive capital required to ruthlessly acquire smaller competitors. They created a highly efficient, vertically integrated logistics network that allowed them to undercut independent grocers and establish a fortified moat around their consumer base. The power move. The ultimate mastermind stroke of the Bruno dynasty was their exit. In the 1990s, recognizing the terrifying, impending threat of Walmart's aggressive expansion into the grocery sector, the Bruno family orchestrated the sale of their massive empire to the ruthless private equity titans at KKR, Kohlberg Kravis Roberts, for over $1 billion. What most people misunderstand. The public remembers the Brunos as friendly, smiling neighborhood grocers who sponsored local Little League teams. In reality, they were highly sophisticated, apex retail operators. They read the shifting macroeconomic winds perfectly. By liquidating their equity at the absolute euphoric peak of regional supermarket valuations, they secured immense generational wealth right before the retail apocalypse annihilated their industry. They sold the ship right before the storm hit. Number 9. The Gorey family, the concrete conquerors. How the money was made. You cannot discuss the modern economic explosion of the American South without acknowledging the family that physically poured the concrete. In 1964, Miller Gorey took over a small, struggling local construction firm in Birmingham. Through sheer operational brilliance, he transformed it into Brasfield & Gorey, an absolute mega-contractor that currently generates over $5 billion in annual revenue. They are the premier builders of the modern Sun Belt. How it was protected. The construction industry is notoriously cyclical and prone to devastating bankruptcies during economic recessions. The Gorey family protected their empire by violently rejecting residential housing. Instead, they aggressively dominated the healthcare and water infrastructure verticals. Regardless of whether the stock market is booming or crashing, cities must build hospitals and water treatment plants. By specializing in these highly complex recession-proof mega-projects, they completely insulated their cash flow. The power move. The ultimate power move of the Gorey dynasty is their absolute refusal to take the company public. By remaining strictly privately held, the Gorey family controls their own margins. They never have to sacrifice the long-term safety of the company to satisfy the frantic, quarterly earnings demands of Wall Street hedge funds. What most people misunderstand, the general public assumes that the true power in real estate belongs to the flashy developers and the bankers. The Gorey family proves that the developer is just a middleman. The ultimate power belongs to the physical architect, the entity that actually commands the cranes, the steel, and the labor force. If you walk into a hospital, a corporate headquarters, or a sports stadium anywhere in the South, the Gorey family likely controls the ground you are standing on. Number 8. The Russell family, the Lakeside landlords. How the money was made. In 1902, Benjamin Russell founded the Russell Manufacturing Company in the tiny town of Alexander City, Alabama. He literally invented the modern cotton sweatshirt, replacing itchy wool uniforms for athletes. Russell Athletic exploded into a massive global apparel brand, outfitting entire professional sports leagues and generating vast fortunes for the family. How it was protected. The textile industry eventually collapsed in the United States, ravaged by cheap overseas manufacturing. When the family finally sold the Russell Corporation apparel brand to Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway, most people assumed the dynasty was over. But the family executed a brilliant maneuver. They sold the brand, but they kept the dirt. Decades earlier, Benjamin Russell had the incredible foresight to purchase massive tracts of land surrounding the newly formed Lake Martin to supply hydroelectric power to his mills. The power move. The family transitioned entirely from manufacturing cheap cotton to commanding ultra-luxury real estate. Today, Russell Lands is an undisputed behemoth, controlling over 25,000 acres of pristine forest and hundreds of miles of highly coveted shoreline around Lake Martin. They develop ultra-exclusive, multi-million-dollar waterfront communities, marinas, and golf courses. What most people misunderstand, when people hear the name Russell, they think of gym class t-shirts and old athletic gear. They completely misunderstand the true nature of this multi-generational wealth. The Russell family is no longer in the clothing business. They are an absolute real estate monarchy. They hold an unbreakable monopoly over the most elite, highly sought-after waterfront property in the state. They traded cheap cotton for priceless geography. Number 7. The Steislinger family, the disaster capitalists. How the money was made. Lee Steislinger Sr. took a modest equipment distribution company and built Alltech into the absolute undisputed global leader in the manufacturing of utility bucket trucks and specialized heavy equipment. Today, Alltech operates in over 87 countries, generating billions in revenue. How it was protected. The Steislinger family protected their massive fortune by cornering a deeply entrenched B2B market. Every single telecommunications provider, power company, and tree care service in the world absolutely requires specialized aerial equipment to function. It is a completely inescapable operational expense. When massive hurricanes or ice storms decimate the American power grid, it is fleets of Alltech trucks that are dispatched to rebuild the infrastructure. They monetized disaster recovery and civic maintenance. The power move. The Steislingers recognized that relying solely on heavy manufacturing leaves you vulnerable to capital crunches. So they executed a breathtaking financial power move. They literally bought and founded their own banks. By establishing institutions like Highland Bank, they successfully diversified their massive industrial cash flows into the highly lucrative, tightly regulated world of commercial finance, effectively becoming their own capital providers. What most people misunderstand. The average citizen drives past a white utility truck fixing a downed power line and completely ignores it. But the Steislinger family looked at that boring, invisible maintenance vehicle and turned it into an international multi-billion-dollar juggernaut. They proved that you do not need to build glamorous sports cars to become outrageously wealthy. You just need to build the highly specialized machine that keeps the lights on for the rest of civilization. Number 6. The McWayne family, the lords of the underground. How the money was made. In 1921, J.R. McWayne founded McWayne Incorporated in Birmingham, establishing an empire built on pure, visceral iron. The company grew to become one of the largest manufacturers of cast iron pipes, valves, hydrants, and water infrastructure components on the planet. They do not build consumer gadgets. They forge the literal underground veins of the American municipal water grid. And the complex for blast furnaces and the complex logistics completely prevent new competitors from entering the market. The McWayne family protected their empire through aggressive, ruthless consolidation, buying up competitors and establishing a near monopoly on the heavy iron infrastructure required to build modern cities. The power move. The ultimate power move of the McWayne dynasty is their absolute, unyielding commitment to extreme privacy. Operating a massive, heavy-polluting industrial empire draws immense regulatory scrutiny and media attacks. The family navigates this by remaining entirely out of the public eye, refusing to take the company public, and maintaining a silent, iron grip on their global operations. What most people misunderstand, the tech billionaires of Silicon Valley arrogantly claim that their software runs the world. The McWayne family proves that this is a complete illusion. If a social media app goes offline, society continues. But without the heavy iron pipes manufactured by the McWayne family, the global water supply stops, and modern civilization collapses in 48 hours. They do not sell convenience, they sell biological survival. Number 5. The Blount family, the architects of the cosmos. How the money was made. Winton Blount was a visionary who built Blount International into the largest, most formidable construction company in the United States. He was a man obsessed with absolute scale. His company did not just build standard office parks. They constructed the Louisiana Superdome, and most incredibly, they built Launch Pad 39A at the Kennedy Space Center, the exact physical structure that launched the Apollo missions to the moon. How it was protected. Blount recognized that massive, fixed-bid government construction contracts carry terrifying financial risks. A single delayed megaproject could bankrupt the entire company. He protected his empire by aggressively diversifying into high-margin manufacturing. He orchestrated the acquisition of Omark Industries, taking absolute global dominance of the chainsaw chain and timber accessories market, ensuring steady, predictable cash flow to offset the volatile construction division. The power move. Winton Blount did not just seek financial dominance. He sought absolute cultural and political immortality. He served as the Postmaster General of the United States, wielding immense federal influence. He then utilized his staggering personal wealth to build the world-class Alabama Shakespeare Festival, entirely funding its construction and donating it to the state. Operated on a scale that altered human history. They were not just pouring concrete in Alabama. They were literally building the physical launch pads that propelled humanity into the cosmos. They forged an empire that stretched from the timber forest of the Pacific Northwest to the surface of the moon. Number 4. The Rana family. The billionaire lumberjack. How the money was made. Jimmy Raine, famously known as the Yella Fella, is the only official Forbes-certified billionaire currently residing in Alabama, boasting a net worth of $1.5 billion. He founded Great Southern Wood Preserving by taking over a tiny, failing backyard plant. Through sheer aggression and operational brilliance, he transformed it into the world's largest producer of pressure-treated pine, controlling the raw materials that build the decks, fences, and homes of America. How it was protected. Lumber is inherently a generic, unglamorous commodity. Raine protected his wealth by executing a masterclass in psychological marketing. He slapped a bright yellow tag on his wood and spent tens of millions of dollars on eccentric, cinematic television commercials. He successfully branded a raw commodity, forcing massive retailers like Home Depot to stock yellowwood because the consumers specifically demanded it by name. The power move. Jimmy Raine's power extends far beyond the lumberyard. He holds the state in a political and academic vice grip. He serves on the board of trustees for Auburn University and essentially bankrolls their massive athletic programs. Furthermore, he is one of the heaviest donors to state political campaigns, ensuring that his corporate interests are deeply protected by the state's legislative levers. What most people misunderstand, because he plays a goofy, lighthearted cowboy in his own television commercials, the public assumes Jimmy Raine is just a folksy, lucky businessman. This is a fatal underestimation. He is a ruthless, highly sophisticated corporate operator who took a bankrupt facility and systematically monopolized an entire sector of the American construction supply chain. The cowboy persona is merely a highly profitable disguise. Number 3. The Drummond family. The global energy leviathan was his son, Gary Neal Drummond, who transformed a gritty regional mining operation into an absolute international energy leviathan. He secured massive, highly lucrative contracts with Japanese steel mills, elevating the Drummond Company onto the global stage. How it was protected. As the American coal industry faced utter devastation from environmental regulations and the rise of natural gas, the Drummond family protected their billions by aggressively sidestepping the United States entirely. They secured the rights to massive, virtually untouched coal reserves in Colombia, South America. By pivoting their entire operational focus to international export markets, they insulated their cash flow from the dying domestic industry. The power move. In 2011, when global coal prices were soaring, the Drummond family executed a financial masterpiece. They sold a mere 20% stake in their Colombian operations to the Japanese conglomerate Itochu for a staggering $1.5 billion in liquid cash. This single transaction definitively valued their South American assets at a breathtaking $7.5 billion. What most people misunderstand: the media constantly reports that the coal industry is dead. The Drummond family proved that this narrative is completely false if you control the international supply chain. While legacy American coal companies filed for bankruptcy, the highly private Drummond family extracted billions in pure, liquid cash by fueling the industrial expansion of Asia and Europe. They proved that true wealth survives by knowing exactly when to cross borders. Number 2. The Harbert family. The masters of the universe. How the money was made. The Harbert dynasty possesses the most legendary origin story in the South. John M. Harbert returned from World War II, won a concrete mixer in a high-stakes craps game, and used it to found Harbert Corporation. He aggressively built a massive global construction and engineering empire, executing massive mega projects in South America, the Middle East, and across the United States. How it was protected. The true genius of the Harbert family occurred in the second generation. Raymond Harbert recognized that international construction was inherently dangerous and prone to geopolitical volatility. He executed the ultimate corporate pivot. He spun off the financial assets and founded Harbert Management Corporation, transforming the family business from pouring concrete into managing alternative assets, private equity, and European real estate. The power move. Raymond Harbert essentially built an elite, Wall Street tier hedge fund right in the heart of Birmingham, Alabama. Harbert Management Corporation currently manages over $8 billion in assets. They do not take on the massive risk of building the physical infrastructure anymore. They simply move the global capital that finances it, operating with the terrifying efficiency of a sovereign wealth fund. What most people misunderstand, when the public sees the Harbert name plastered across the prestigious business school at Auburn University, they assume the family are simply wealthy alumni who sold a local business. In reality, Raymond Harbert sits at the absolute apex of global high finance. The family successfully transitioned from blue-collar construction magnates into the ultimate masters of the universe, commanding an international financial fortress that rivals the most powerful firms in New York. Number 1. The Stevens family, the silent information monarchy. How the money was made. The absolute richest dynasty in Alabama operates in almost total silence. In 1944, Elton B. Stevens founded EBSCO Industries. He did not drill for oil or mine for coal. He started by selling magazine subscriptions to military bases. Over the ensuing decades, the family aggressively rolled up their profits, building an impenetrable, highly diversified conglomerate that dominates manufacturing, real estate, and promotional products. How it was protected. The terrifying core of the EBSCO empire and the source of their multi-billion-dollar fortune is their absolute monopoly on information. EBSCO Information Services provides the digital research databases, journals, and massive search platforms used by nearly every major university, medical institution, and public library on the planet. It is an inescapable, highly fortified subscription service. Academia literally cannot function without paying the Stevens family their annual tax. The power move. The ultimate power move of the Stevens dynasty is their fierce, uncompromising privacy. They completely shunned the public stock market. By remaining a 100% privately held corporation, the family, whose net worth is conservatively estimated between $4 billion and $6 billion, operates with zero public debt pressure. They never have to reveal their astronomical profit margins to aggressive Wall Street analysts. Owns one of the largest privately held conglomerates in the United States. They hold the absolute monopoly on the data flow to global universities, functioning as the silent gatekeepers of human research. They do not seek fame or flashy headlines. They are the undisputed, untouchable royal family of Alabama wealth. Alabama is not just a Southern stereotype. It is a privately owned fortress for the ultra-wealthy. From the silent timber lords to the global coal magnates, these dynasties literally own the infrastructure of your daily life. Which of these Southern empires holds the most absolute power? The iron pipe barons or the private equity kings? Let me know down below. If you want to understand who really runs the world, like and subscribe to Global Status. We track the money so you don't have to.